The results of the election on November 5th, 2024, were plastered across every news outlet. Donald Trump re-elected as president. For some, it was a cause for celebration. For others, despair. But for Mark and Emily Thompson, it was the beginning of the end. Mark sat at the breakfast table that morning, his coffee cooling in front of him as he scrolled through his phone. The kids were still asleep upstairs, and the house was quiet except for the faint hum of the dishwasher. Max, their golden retriever, dozed by the window, his ears twitching in his sleep. Emily walked in, tying her hair back into a loose bun. She poured herself a cup of tea and leaned against the counter. "So," Mark said, not looking up from his phone, "it's official. Trump won." Emily didn't respond. Mark set his phone down and looked at her. Well, what?" she asked, her tone neutral. "You don't seem too happy about it." Emily sipped her tea, her eyes focused on the steam rising from the cup. "Should I be?" Mark's brow furrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I didn't vote for him, Mark." The silence between them was heavy. Mark leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "You're joking." "I'm not," she said, meeting his gaze. Mark let out a short, humorless laugh. "You voted for Harris. After everything we've talked about." "We talked," Emily said calmly. "You talked. I listened, but I made my own decision." "Unbelievable," Mark muttered, pushing his chair back. "You voted against everything we stand for, everything I've worked for." Emily set her cup down, her expression steady. "I voted for what I believe is best for this family, for the kids. You don't have to agree with me, but you do have to respect it." "Respect it?" Mark's voice rose. "How am I supposed to respect you voting for someone who represents everything I'm against?" Emily's jaw tightened. "This isn't about you, Mark." By the following week, the tension in the house was palpable. Every conversation between Mark and Emily turned into a battle. The kids noticed, of course. 12-year-old Ben stopped asking to play catch with his dad in the backyard. 16-year-old Lily, once so close to her mother, started spending more time at her friend's house after school. One evening, Mark came home from work to find Emily sitting on the couch, her laptop open on her lap. The TV was on, but the volume was muted. "What's this?" he asked, gesturing to the screen. Emily looked up, her face tired. "What does it look like?" "I'm working." "It looks like you're avoiding me," Mark shot back. Emily closed the laptop with a sigh. "Do we really have to do this every night?" "Do what?" "Talk about how you threw our future away with one vote." "I didn't throw anything away," Emily snapped, her voice rising for the first time. "I voted for what I believe in, Mark. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean I'm wrong." Mark ran a hand through his hair, pacing the room. "This isn't just about politics, Emily. It's about trust. How am I supposed to trust you when you can't even stand with me on something this important?" Emily stood, her hands trembling. "I could say the same thing about you. You've made this entire marriage about what you want, what you believe. I'm tired of being ignored." The room was silent except for the faint hum of the TV. Upstairs, a door creaked open, and Ben peeked his head down the stairs. "Go back to bed, Ben," Emily called, her voice softer now. Ben hesitated, then disappeared back into his room. Mark shook his head, his expression one of disbelief. "This isn't working, is it?" Emily's shoulders slumped. "No, it's not." By mid-November, they had made the decision. They were getting a divorce. Emily would stay in the house with the kids, and Mark would find an apartment nearby. The logistics were messy, but the emotional toll was worse. The kids were devastated. Ben barely spoke, retreating into his room with Max by his side. Lily, always quick with a sharp comment, became openly hostile. "Why can't you just figure it out?" she yelled one evening after dinner. "You're supposed to be the adults." Mark and Emily exchanged a glance, the weight of their failure settling over them like a cloud. "We're trying, Lily," Emily said softly. "Not hard enough," Lily shot back, before storming upstairs. The house felt emptier without Mark there. Max often wandered to the front door, his ears perked up as if waiting for Mark to come home. Emily tried to keep things normal for the kids, but the cracks in their family were impossible to ignore. One evening, as they sat around the dinner table, Ben spoke up for the first time in days. "Do you think Max misses Dad?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Emily's throat tightened. "I think Max loves all of us, Ben. He'll be okay." Ben nodded, but the sadness in his eyes was unmistakable. By the end of November, the divorce papers were signed. Mark moved into a modest apartment on the other side of town. Thanksgiving was a somber affair, with the kids splitting the day between their parents. At Mark's apartment, Ben tried to put on a brave face. "I taught Max a new trick," he said, his voice small. Mark smiled, ruffling his son's hair. "Yeah? You'll have to show me next time he's here." Ben looked down at his plate. "Mom says he doesn't like car rides, so maybe he should just stay there." Mark's heart broke a little more. As the month drew to a close, the Thompson family adjusted to their new reality. The love that had once bound them was now replaced by polite distance and strained smiles. For Emily, the decision to end the marriage was bittersweet. She missed the way Mark used to make her laugh, the way he used to hold her hand when they walked Max in the park. But she couldn't ignore the growing chasm between them, a divide that no amount of laughter could bridge. For Mark, the loss was sharper. He missed the warmth of their home, the sound of Lily's music drifting down the hall, the way Max would nudge his leg during dinner. He missed Emily, even if he couldn't admit it out loud. And for Lily and Ben, the divorce was a lesson in loss. They learned too soon that sometimes even the people you love most can grow apart. Max, loyal as ever, stayed by Emily's side, his soft brown eyes filled with a quiet understanding. He was the one constant in a world that had changed too quickly. The election that divided the nation had also divided the Thompsons, leaving them to pick up the pieces of a life they could never quite put back together.